So up until now, I have backed off of the idea of having to include a hierarchy chart with your modular design from chapters 8, 9, and 10. And really, I assure you that was for a good reason. I wanted to make sure that you guys had the idea of modularization down. And honestly, I've been pretty happy so far with the results we've gotten. So now that everybody feels like they're doing well, let's go ahead and throw a wrench into this and let's look at the reason we really truly do want a hierarchy chart to be included. So this here is just an example of a hierarchy chart. Now, you will have seen this in the text. I'm just providing a little bit of context here. It's not to say that this is a great or a complex example. It's just another example that we can add to what we've got so far. So we've got our main program, and we can see that the first level of the program after this is initialization, DAC settings, and DAC status, right? So initialization, we know, is going to do the following things. It's going to set working folder, it's going to do analysis on files, and it's going to open a serial communications port. DAC settings is going to load a sample ID, set example counting sequence and parameters, etc., etc. I know you can read along with these. Same with DAC status. We go through and we set a start count, we run a sample counting process, etc., etc. If we just want to see a couple of examples here, this is actually from a piece of instruction on an accounting software. So as I've mentioned numerous times, every time I hear the word accounting, part of me shuts down and I like go into defense mode. But this is actually a really good example. So when we're going to determine payroll, these are the processes that has to happen. And you'll notice this is certainly more complex than our previous example here with whatever this one is doing. So you'll notice when we process one employee, we're going to calculate net pay, and that particular process undergoes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different sub-processes that have to go through on just calculate net pay. So we calculate deductions, we calculate CPP, union dues, healthcare insurance, income tax. When we calculate gross pay, we calculate regular pay first, overtime pay second. I'm sure all of this looks a little bit familiar from your own, the payroll example you have been cultivating since essentially chapter 3, right? But this is actually from accounting software. So this is from a piece of accounting software called Mass90. It's actually one I've used. Not that I've used it, because again, I have a severe negative mental reaction to accounting software, but I've actually had to help support Mass90. It's a Sage software package. And you can see just from the one single sub module, the determined payroll, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 individual sub modules that have to run from the one other subordinate module, just determine payroll. If we're looking at the example we had way back on page 39 in the text, right? So if you think way back into earlier in the semester, when you looked at a concrete sequential method for getting data from a classroom or a classroom database worth of data, this is what that would look. So we would have the female part-time student report. And these following actions: initialize file, determine file path, open file. That's just one part of our overall algorithmic design. We would process a record, which has to include processing the open file, the one we did just over here. Initializing the record, zero out our totals, display headings, print, so on and so forth. This is actually an example you've already seen. But now here we can see what the hierarchy chart for that would have to look like. So even just here, even just in the one subordinate module that you've already seen, you've already created, you've already modified this at least a couple of times, right? The process part-time female student report. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and really 8 and 9. We have 9 hierarchy layers here that we have to investigate, that we have to delineate, that we have to actually display in a hierarchy chart, because when this becomes part of a larger program, just like when we determine payroll as part of a larger program, all of this has to be provided to whomever the next developers are in the chain so that they get value out of whatever it is that you've done, and they can see whatever it is that they need to do to interact with what your existing code structure is already doing. So, how are we going to go about actually creating hierarchy charts for the essentially all of the assignments that remain? Now, there's a ton of different ways to do this. If you have Word installed locally on your machines, you can do most of the same procedure I'll demonstrate here right from Word. If you have PowerPoint installed on your local machine, it'll work there. So if you have a Mac or a PC, irrespective, those are going to look slightly different, but they're going to work in exactly the same way. Rather than highlight that, because this procedure is nearly exactly the same no matter where you go, what I'll do is highlight here the Office 365 version of this. So again, you do have an Office 365 login, which is just office.com. That's available to you via your student at rockvalleycollege.edu email account. So if here in Google, again, all I had to do was search for Office 365, and it's just office.com. Once you come through there, you'll see sign in. When you click on sign in, I'm already signed in, so here we go. Again, you would sign in using your S number at student.rockvalleycollege.edu address, and that will get you to see exactly what I'm looking at here. Now, I'll just highlight this really quickly, not because I think that you're missing out on anything, but just in case. From here, you can actually install the full Office suite on your local PCs. I suggest that if you have an older version of Office installed someplace, or if you don't have a version of Office installed someplace, go ahead and grab it. You guys get for 4 years Office as a local install on 5 machines, as long as you go through and grab it before you're done being a student at Rock Valley College. So I'm just saying, you get a ton of, we get a ton of alerts too, but you get a ton of use out of Office by doing so. Here on Office 365, the only app we have that's going to allow you to do a hierarchy chart is PowerPoint. So I'm coming through here on PowerPoint, but again, if you have Word or PowerPoint installed on whatever your machine is, it's going to look similar to this. So I'm just going to start a new blank presentation, and here from within our new blank presentation, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this garbagey stuff. I'm just right-clicking and saying cut on both of those. Those are really just there to get in your way, and there's no real point to that. From here, you would come to Insert. On the Insert ribbon, you would come to Smart Art. Now, this is where all the good business form stuff is. Now, again, it's Insert and Smart Art on PowerPoint, the desktop application, and Word, the desktop application. It's just that this is the one thing I can show everybody that's going to be exactly the same. If you come right here to the hierarchy chart, this is the one we want. Are there other kinds of hierarchy charts? Yes. Are there, Google hierarchy charts actually pretty nice too? But this one is easiest, and frankly, it's going to get you the most utility for what we're doing. So I'm just going to highlight this one. So we'll come here to the hierarchy chart, and voila, here we go. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so that we can see the different strata we'll be putting in. And your text goes over here in the left-hand box. So the very top one, this is the name of your program. This is your first sub row right here. So this is module 1, whatever you're going to call module 1, that would get an actual name. And this is underneath module 1. If you want to add more modules, just hit enter, and we get module 2. So what we want to be subordinate to module 2, we would add here. So this is 2. If we want to add subordinate modules to module 1, we just hit enter, we hit tab, and away we go. So this is sub 3. This one will be sub 4. If sub 4 has subordinate modules, you guessed it, hit enter, hit tab, sub 5, sub 6. I can't spell. Sub 6, there you go. So now we can start building our hierarchy chart. This can get really involved really quickly, and that's okay. The great part about using the hierarchy chart here in Office 365, or again, your desktop version of Word or PowerPoint, is that if we were to use the drawing tool in Google Docs, this gets really messy really quickly, and then the onus is on you to manage and maintain everything. Here in PowerPoint, in Office 365, or again, your local apps, the onus to maintain everything is on PowerPoint in this case. So if I have sub, and I'm just going to keep adding subs here, you know, to make it really involved, it doesn't matter. Everything is maintained automatically by PowerPoint. If I just make this a little bit bigger, it's going to go ahead and give me all the space that I need. So if I need this module, so we'll call this one module 3, and now module 3 gets a name over here, and I can start adding additional sub modules here. This is a really fantastic tool. It will help users, the next developer in the chain. It will help anybody who is looking to interact with your system, who is not part of your initial development, who is trying to get some sense of the overall usage of your program. This is going to allow them to come through, and see what it is that your programs are doing. Office 365, or again, your local installed versions of Word or PowerPoint, make this process way easier than it would otherwise be. Certainly in Google Draw, as part of the doc suite, that is punitive and frankly shitty, and it's hard to use. If you were to do this as part of Visio, which is a professional version of this tool, there are so many options that sometimes it makes it hard to actually do. So certainly this is the easiest way to produce a hierarchy chart. And when you're making submissions for this, you can either, when you're done with this, if you come to share, you can actually download this as a PowerPoint presentation, and you can include that as part of your file submission. Or if you so choose, you can share this as a Office 365 link, and I'll be able to get access to that via the shared link. So either way, when you're producing hierarchy charts, this is the way to do that.